Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women's Cave. And
I'm
thank
gonna
you,
let
Jay,
I'm
for
gonna let
letting
her
me
have it
that.
because I got to record like two yesterday by myself. I didn't even have to like rush anybody. It was relaxing. I was sitting in my big chair, like this is the best life
It
ever.
was so. I saw those interviews, and I feel like she was more professional than she needed to be.
Well,
She asked
I
serious
warned
questions.
everyone. I said, listen, the fun half is here, Winona. So just stuck with Boy and Jade. Oh, I'm Jade.
Oh, and I'm Winona. Thank you for remembering.
High five, social distance time.
Yes, I almost introduced myself as you. You were going to be Jade, and I was going to be Jade, number two. And that's like, no, that's not your name. That's
Why
not
would you
my
go?
name.
What?
I was just trying to be serious.
I guess maybe we need to go to bed sooner, like, because we've been in a creative ridiculousness for the last like 2 weeks and being going to bed like 4 o'clock in the morning and then waking up at like 8. Well, well, I want to say 8, but this is Corona, so
it feels like
more
8,
like 10,
but the clock
30.
says 11. That's a lie. That's a lie. The clock is lying. Corona time should count.
It should count. It should count. Okay, so I guess that's enough banter.
That's enough banter from us. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about.
Besides, like my hair won't do this. Is doing this wing thing. So
why?
Now we can do banter.
So people on the pod, like on the podcast, please go over and watch one of those hair do the thing.
Don't.
For once in her life, her hair is really messed up, and my hair is normally messed up. So I need everyone to see it. Everyone see it.
X.
All right, so we were literary life guides with pop poetry, and okay, so and I thought divorce was bad with other life lessons, and I thought being grown up was easy, and
those
I thought
audiobooks. Oh, don't you miss those things? Like
I don't
just
miss.
Jumping in
I didn't miss it.
Continue.
And I thought I did my journey alone, and if only I were me, available only on Barnes & Noble, and then we're gonna have like 1.5 more books coming out soon.
So that's 4 of the 17. You can check out everything where, Jay?
Oh, you can check out everything you're lazy doing on www.andwethought.com. But y'all aren't here to hear about us.
No.
You're to hear from our wonderful guests.
Because, I talk about me all day.
Oh,
no. Wonderful guests, would you like to introduce?
See, that? Yeah, wonderful guests, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Matthew E. Wheeler. I am an author and a dad. Live in the Pacific Northwest, so it's coffee all day, all the time. Kind of a requirement to live here. Originally from Wisconsin, though, so I spent many years in frigid temperatures. Got out of that as soon as I possibly could, and I'm excited to be here. So
I like it. I like when people are excited to be here. And then it makes me be like, ooh, calm down. You don't need to be excited to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you, and it's really interesting. We met him at the Pacific Northwest virtual
at the Pacific Northwest Writers Association virtual conference.
See, and
I can say difficult things. It's the word introduce yourself that feels I feel allergic.
Yeah, he was our moderator, and he was talking about his wonderful book, and it was amazing. Oh yeah, they messed up and let us present. So we fooled people to think we were amazing.
So we heard about his book and we're like, it's amazing. So
you have to come on the show.
Yes, you have to come on the show. So first of all, my question is, why did you write this book? Like, coming from Wisconsin.
And what's the book title? Because you have to
Yeah, it's Falling Onto Cotton. So there's a picture of it right there. It's interesting. The reason I wrote the book, I was in the restaurant business for over 20 years. So in that time, I had hired and trained and mentored hundreds, if not a couple thousand teenagers in their first job, essentially. Which is a challenging but interesting and fun experience to have. And in that time, I found it an interesting experience to have different parts of my life on fire, burning down around me. And yet here I am as this, presenting myself as this stable, mature, grown up who knows what he's talking about. And I'm mentoring these kids in their first job, and literally there's smoke, all around me. And that was an interesting thing to me to explore. And so that's kind of where the idea for the book came. I wanted to write about a man who was good, kind-hearted, had a bit of a code, but had made some pretty poor choices and was continually making more poor choices. And at the same time, he's trying to support and help these teenage kids. And that's where the original idea came from. And then all of a sudden, this mob angle showed up, and I was living in Milwaukee for most of my 20s and 30s. And there was an actual mob still in Milwaukee back in the 90s and 2000s, probably still now. And I had, was at a bar, surprisingly enough, and being in Wisconsin, and I came across a cigarette machine, those old kind, you put all of your quarters in, you pull the tab out, get your pack of Cools or your pack of Marlboros or whatever, and none of the cigarettes had tax stamps, which told me immediately that they had been hijacked off a truck, and so that stuck with me for years, just that thought. And so when I sat down to write the book, that's just kind of how it came out. So it's literally, it's about an innocent restaurateur's life whose life spins out of control when his dying uncle, a Milwaukee crime lord, taps him to become the next Don. So, and that's kind of how it came about.
It's a fun book.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, it was like when he was telling us about it, I was like, "There's a mob in Wisconsin?"
Oh yeah. Yeah, actually, there's where I'm from is called Door County, which is like the thumb part of Wisconsin that sticks out into Lake Michigan. And there's actually the claim to fame of this. There's a restaurant up there where apparently had been owned by Al Capone back in the 20s. So at least that's what the lore is. So yeah, there's been mob in Wisconsin for a long time, but
wow.
Yeah.
No one says Wisconsin and thinks mob. They like Wisconsin and cheese or Wisconsin and
beer.
Beer or something like not.
Which brings me completely off topic. So, favorite beer and favorite cheese.
Oh gosh, oh man, you're gonna make this tough on me.
Hey, give us like the top 2 favorite beers.
Newcastle and Stella were my 2 favorites. I don't drink anymore, which you find out when you're reading the book, basically. But because I really enjoyed it and I partaked in it a lot. So that became kind of counterproductive to the rest of my goals in life. But boy, I definitely enjoyed some Newcastle and some Stella. Favorite cheese, if I'm going for everyday kind of like, am I wearing my sweats kind of cheese? It's Swiss. But if I'm, wearing a suit and tie, it's Stilton. So.
Oh, okay. So what you mean? So in 2020, you've just been eating Swiss?
Lots of Swiss.
Just
pounds and pounds of Swiss.
Yeah, just.
I think when we get finished this, the amount of cheese that an American eats is going to be like tripled.
Right.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
And the amount of pizza that we probably ate. Oh my word. Oh.
Yeah, thank gosh they're still delivering pizza. Otherwise, I think a lot of people would be in trouble.
Oh my goodness, I would
of course,
be sad.
I make it homemade. So.
Do you?
Yeah, like from flour and go on. I wouldn't.
That's adventurous. I wouldn't trust myself to do that. I'd be afraid I'd break a tooth on the crust or something.
You would.
So.
It's just like making bread.
Wait, but you were in the restaurant business.
Oh, I know. And with some things, I have like my 3 dishes I can make really well, and but that's it. Like I wasn't behind in the kitchen, thankfully, for everybody's sake. I was in the front mostly.
I have one more question that's way out in left field.
Yeah.
Are those encyclopedias behind you?
They are. Thank you for noticing. Yeah.
Encyclopedias.
Yes.
Oh
wow.
my God.
I know, right?
Those can't be encyclopedias.
They
so
are.
I'm not gonna say a thing.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say a thing.
I think they're a collector's item, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Wow.
So my wife literally rolled her eyes when I brought them home. She's like, "What are you doing?" But to me, I saw them at the bookstore, and I was like, "I have to have them before they are all gone." So, I wanted my daughter to be able to, be bored on a Saturday and open them up and just kind of explore. So,
has that happened yet?
No.
I didn't think so.
No, she's got Minecraft and Roblox, and she's not gonna crack open an encyclopedia. So.
I remember when my mother she had bought 5 different sets of encyclopedias. She's like, they're going to read them. I'm going to read them. I'm going to read them. You're going to read them. And I was like, yeah, no one.
This Google exists. What are we doing right now? Let me just.
I just read a post about a blog about how kids aren't bored anymore. And so they're never going to do the things that you did when you had to be bored on a Saturday afternoon and all that was on TV was golf. like pick up your aunt's guitar or pick up, your grandpa's paintbrush, or crack open a encyclopedia or something, because there's always something that kids today can do. And that kind of struck me because we're struggling with screen time ourselves right now. So, but it's something to think about.
Although I have to admit, the other day I looked at my screen time and it said 47 minutes for the week. I went, what?
Wow.
And then I was like, oh, right. I was writing by hand. I got to stop that immediately.
I don't know how you do that.
Back into screen time.
I've met other writers like you. It's pretty rare nowadays, but I've heard of your existence.
It's just
the writers that still write by hand. I don't know how you can do it. I can't read any of my own writing, but that's why I don't do it. But.
Oh no, so the point of that is like you memorize it page by page. Like as you write, you're like you read back over it and you kind of like just memorize it. And so you like
that makes sense
of your story, because there's no way in the world you're gonna read back through and be like, oh, I'm going to type this. But the only reason I do it by hand is because like every other year I enter the 3-day book contest, and the only way, like if I was gonna type it, it would take me like weeks to type it all up. But the only way to get it done is just to buy 3 or 4 notebooks and then just tape them together and just write for 3 days.
I think that's actually some of my fault, because she would always get the best ideas, like growing up or wherever, right? She would get the best ideas when there was like no paper, no pen, no anything, right? And so I just kept Post-its like everywhere. Like I would go into her house and refresh her Post-its. Because I was like, it's important, and it would be really funny. And she'd be like, don't do it. I don't need you to refresh my Post-its. And then as soon as she'd be like, I'm writing a story. And then it would just be like all of the Post-its. I'm like, see, this is why I refresh your Post-its. It was really, really hilarious. I put like Post-its on the inside of her, cabinet one time, like the one where the mugs are. I put it on the inside of that. And she was like, that is so useful. Cause I'm like, oh, story idea. And then it was like a pin inside the cabinet.
Nice.
So, what is your process of writing?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. So I get up really early, like 3:30 in the morning. Mostly because I just don't sleep that long. And it's also, the house is quiet, everybody else is asleep. So I can get some pretty undisturbed time. So I make my coffee and start freebasing that. And then I'll sit down and I'll scroll through whatever terrible news is on my feed. And then probably look at my Facebook for 10 minutes and, oh my God, that person is a racist or whatever, that's Facebook. And then I'll be like, okay, it's time to get to work. And I just fire it up and I'll read through whatever I wrote the day before or the week before, depending. And then boom, I just write. I'm a pantser. I'm a stream of consciousness kind of guy when I write, which adds weeks and weeks to my editing. But I've tried to outline, and when I start a project, I have a pretty good idea of some things that I want in it. Some scenes, I'm like, oh, that'd be such a great scene to write. That'd be exciting. But everything else is just as I'm thinking and as I'm writing. So that's pretty much my process. But the first draft, I hate writing the first draft. I love editing it. That's where my best creativity comes out.
Can I just send you my stuff?
I know, right? Oh, like every
No, not other people's work. No. No, can't do that.
The first draft is the best.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys find this. I find that when I write, I've learned to not trust it, because as soon as I'm done, I'm like, that's the greatest thing I've ever written in my life. Like I literally think that, and then 3 days will go by and I'll read it again. And I'm like, this is crap. What was I thinking? And then a week goes by and I'm like, okay, there's some good and there's some bad. And then that's when I fix it. I have to go through that sort of emotional, I think that's arrogance or ego on my part, that I think immediately after it's done is amazing. But I've learned to not trust my first draft ever.
That's Winona. I've written it. It can't be better.
Okay, no. I'm weird like that. But they've done a ton of studies, and they're like, every writer is like that. That's like, you get done.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're writing, you're like, this is horrible, this is horrible, this is horrible. And then when you go back to read it, it's amazing. But I have to say, I got published at 10. So for my many years of writing, everything I write is amazing. And then like everyone's like, oh, don't wait, just wait a few more years, you're gonna be like, it's horrible. And I'm like, I'll go back to something I wrote at 12. I'm like, nah, it's still amazing. I got no better. This story couldn't have been told by Hemingway better. I did amazing.
That's good. I mean, you need that. This business, anything with art is so impossible. It's like you have to have that confidence or you'll never put anything out there. And so it's a critical component that you believe in what you're doing and that you come from a place of wanting to share something with people and hopefully entertain them or educate them or whatever type of writing you're doing. But if you don't have that confidence, nobody's ever going to see your stuff because you're literally ripping open your chest and showing them your heart and saying, please be nice. You know, and so you have to have that confidence and you have to have that drive and that willingness to just bare your soul. At least for me, that's what I would do. So
I mean, I know I absolutely agree with that. So my questions are: you said that you were a restaurateur. Hopefully, I'm saying that correctly. And now you're an author. How did that switch happen?
I burned out. I was, you know, and if anybody's ever worked in the restaurant industry, which I think should be a requirement, like for a year when you're 18 to 19, because it teaches you so much. But anybody that's done it knows it's extremely difficult. It's you have to put up with a lot of people who are not very nice. You have to work long hours. The pay is crap, and it's challenging business. It just is. Anytime you deal with any kind of public, it's challenging. I had done it for 20 plus years in a variety of different roles, from literally washing dishes to managing multiple locations. And I was turning 40 and I was an alcoholic and I'd never been married. And I was in the middle management kind of job, making okay money, enough to survive, but not anything great. And I was turning 40. I was like, do I want the next 20 years of my life to be like the last 20 years of my life? And I thought, no, I've always wanted to write. That's what I wanted to do, but I just never had the courage to do it. Didn't know anything about it, didn't go to college. So I just didn't think I was smart enough or something. But I was like, I'm going to quit my job. In fact, I'm going to quit my career. And I did. I quit my career. I took a year, wrote the first draft of this book. Didn't know anything, hadn't taken any classes. Wrote 170,000 words and thought, because all the books I loved were huge, epic books that were written in the 80s or the 70s when you could do that kind of thing. Now it's only fantasy or sci-fi that does that. But I was like, okay, I'm done. And who do I send it to? Needless to say, I got some interesting feedback from that. And that's when I started, like, okay, I should probably learn about this business and what I'm doing. So it took me 5 years to figure out the publishing industry and writing in general and improve my craft. And until I decided, okay, it's done. And that's how it all came about. So I just took a chance.
Paige, you have a second question, because I have a question.
So I don't do I even remember my second question at that point? That is a very interesting story. Winona.
The Pacific Northwest, I'm not going to PNWA. How did that help you in your writing journey?
Well, there's a couple of different things. I took a couple classes with Pam Binder, who's the president, and anytime you can continue your education in any field, it's a positive. And so there was things that I learned through that process, which was amazing. And then the other part about the PNWA, or probably any writers organization that you can belong to, is it's a community of like-minded people. It's people that are just like you, that have a lot of the same fears as you, struggle with some of the same challenges. Even though they may be from completely different backgrounds, it's a level playing field with somebody else, and that you can make a connection with them. And that's really been probably the best part of it, is the connections I made with the other writers, where we're talking about things and brainstorming or bouncing ideas. Oh, I just lost my ear thing, sorry. Bouncing ideas off of each other. And that's what any writer organization that's good, healthy place, that's what you get out of it. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna bend over and pick up my earpiece.
No, absolutely, and you should. And see, I'm like, and that is why I don't have those little, because I know it's gonna fall out of my ear somewhere while I'm walking down the street and I'll never find it again.
Yep.
Well, I mean, other people have made it work though. I don't know how they do it, but they do. I was gonna say, as a first-time author,
Yeah.
what have you learned, and was it like a huge learning curve?
God, I can't even begin to tell you. Nothing goes the way you think it's going to go. So there's that, and you can do all the research. I mean, hundreds and thousands, probably, of hours of research on publishing. Every YouTube video ever made about publishing, I've watched, books that I've read, authors I've talked to. It never prepares you for how different it is stepping on the stage. It helps, it definitely helps, but once you actually do it and make the mistakes that you inevitably will make, that's, you know, when the real learning begins, which is true about anything in life. I learned that there's a lot of writers, there's a lot of books, a lot of them are amazing, and never compare yourself to any other writer, because they're different. They're doing their own thing. And there is no status bar that you have to achieve other than doing the best that you can and putting out the best product you can, or best book, whatever you want to call it. That's the most important thing. So, you know, when I set out on this journey, I had to really consider what my goals were, what I really wanted to do. And I don't want to be famous. So this is one of the few one of these things I'll probably do. I definitely don't want to be famous. And you know, I don't need to be rich. Money is not my motivator. And thankfully, you know, I'm in a position where I can say that. I know a lot of people aren't. But what I wanted to do was what got me through my teenage years, was books and movies. They were my escape. And the stories that I read there transported me into a different world, or a different time, or a different place, with people that had either problems like mine, or just completely separate kinds of problems that I could not have to worry about my own. That saved my life. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to put something that was some kid would pick up in a library because he was bored, and read it, and for 10 hours or whatever long it took him or her, they were okay in that time period. And that was my goal. So if you want to be famous and you want to be rich, I would pick not writing as your first choice, or understand that it's the career and that's a journey, and it takes a really long time unless lightning strikes. And you have to get enough reward out of what you're making in the craft in order to be able to sustain it, because, you know, it just doesn't happen on the first try very often. So you learn what you can learn from that experience and go on to the next project, and just keep going.
I'd like to say to the people out there that did happen on the first book, we're all very jealous. And please stop talking about it.
No, talk about it, y'all. Please talk about it, y'all. Yeah. Wow, maybe it'll happen in my next book. But yeah, so those are great pieces of advice. And normally I would ask for pieces of advice, but I feel like
pretty much covered it.
I feel like you covered it.
Oh, thanks. I say that with the fact that I don't know anything. So I really, really don't. So I'm just making this up as I go. So.
No, I think it kind of goes with experience, or when you were talking about it, when you publish your book, when you have it, I guess the old saying is that's when the rubber hits the road, right?
Yeah.
Right. So but all the other times you were like in the factory, like, oh, this tire looks like it'll work because we did all the special, and then when it actually hits the road, then you know.
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and you will continue to learn and grow as you write. I mean, I hope. This is my baby. This book will always be, you know, my first child, right? But I hope my next one's better, and I hope the one after that is better, because I'm going to be open to learning and growing and taking any feedback I get and analyzing it and try to get better every time. But this will always be, you know, my book baby. So.
And I want to say, as a reader, I mean, because I've read most of my life, I was not an author until she made me be one. But
so for you out there who are like, oh, can I be an author? Ask your best friend to just force you to do it.
Yeah, because she just forced me, right? But as a reader in general, I think a lot of authors, and I hear this a lot from my first time on this, like, this is not my best book. And I was like, but as a reader, when we know you're new, we hang in there because we're like, this is obviously their first book. Now this is good to be a first book, and that is not a not compliment. That is a compliment, because that means your second book, I'm going to invest my time and money into you because you did a first good to be first book. So it's like, okay, this next book, look at that. It's so much better. And 5 books in, we're just like, yes, this is my person.
That's when she starts telling me about the series.
That's what I started telling her about the series. Like, this is the series. You need to read it. And she's like, I'll read from book 1. No, you'll read from book 5 onward. But
I think I think what you find with a lot of books, for me personally, when I'm reading authors, is that the first book has so much passion and so much heart and so much honesty and so much truth in it, because it's that passion project, right? The author spent the most time on that book, probably. And while other books might be better written that they do technically or whatever, you go back to that first book and you can see the drive and the passion, the fire that author had. So that's what I found.
So, absolutely. What do you think your second project will be, and where can we find your first book?
It's available everywhere. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google Play, Kobo, Apple, all that. But the second book is actually a sequel to the first. This isn't a series per se, but it was originally, it was always going to be 3 books. So almost done with the second one. And hopefully we'll get everything, all my fun editing done and have it out by spring. But there'll be I hope the third one comes out right away. That's my goal, is to just finish the trilogy, I guess it's called, right? But there's 6 other books kicking my brain around, giving me headaches all the time. Maybe 6 is a little bit high, maybe 4, that I need to get to soon. So we'll see. But the sequel is almost done, and hopefully be out soon. So,
can I give you a writer's tip that I find?
Please.
There was a book in my head that I could not get out.
She couldn't, and we had deadline. And she couldn't.
We had deadlines, and so I wrote it as a script because it's only 60 pages long.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And then that way, when you're ready, you can come back and characters and fill in and all the blanks,
and then take it out of the script form.
Yeah, and take it out of script form. But
right,
you've got the essence of your book.
I do have Final Draft software, so
go for it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And I told her, because every time she went to pick up her pen, y'all, because she's old fashioned like that. Every time she went to pick up her pen, she just kept writing these characters. And I was like, well, Nona, I'm going to need you to get it out your head. Like, I'm going to need you to take these 2 days, and I'm going to need you to write these characters, because apparently they're talking to you.
Yeah.
So write them, and then let's do our deadline book things.
It works out. And then it worked out so well, it actually became that podcast. Podcast.
Oh.
Now I'm ready. Podcast. What, episode 4?
Yeah.
Of the script?
That's awesome.
That's cool.
We are happy because people are listening to the podcast and enjoying it, and it's kind of fun that those characters that wouldn't get out of her head is now like a podcast, and we have other people on there to talk about craft. It's nice.
But again, tell us where we can find your book so we can wrap up nicely.
And your website.
So MatthewEWheeler.com is the website, and that's an E in the middle of that. And their links are all on the main page of the website, but it's Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google, Apple, all those. So
can you show us the book one more time?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Falling in onto Cotton. Blah, 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 blah. I can't read today.
Yeah, you're catching it.
So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate having you on.
You've been so nice. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Jade, would you like to wrap us up?
Absolutely. You can find out everything your ladies are doing on www.andwethought.com. While you're there, you can go down to the homepage and see that podcast we were just talking about, because we started 4 of them with professional actors read well-known script, and then we have other managers on. It's called The Managers, but the actual podcast is called The Ladies' Tales, and we have professional managers and actors and everything on, and we talk about the business of show business, and sometimes just random things that we want to throw in, because y'all know your ladies, that's what we do. And then more importantly than all of that, though, you go to the ladies tab, go down to the middle and see the charities that we probably support. Keep in mind that this is October, so it's Domestic Violence Month, and you might want to pay special attention to Powerful Beginnings, which is the first little square in the middle, and we know it's 2020 for progressives, and as the old saying says, 2020, money is funny, right? Money is funny. So you might not be able to donate money. That's okay. You might be able to donate time because they are looking for volunteers to do certain things. Or you might just want to add all of the charities or just Powerful Beginnings on social media and thank them for doing this wonderful work in the world. We really appreciate that in advance. Don't we all need a little encouragement? Because I know Winona says she does.
I'm sorry. I was going, what's Matt doing?
What you saying? Nosy.
Sorry. And the domestic violence hotline number right there. Sorry.
Thank you. See? Woo! And that is so important, y'all. Please remember to do that if you have a
you
situation.
Need to get away from a situation, definitely.
All right. So I guess I will leave you with wisdom is all around you if
you're open to finding it and accepting it. So peace and love, you guys, from Winona
and Jade. Oh, yeah. Thanks for listening.